The first new entry into the DCU under James Gunn is getting really close, with the first teaser trailer for Creature Commandos recently released. The question is, will everybody fall in love with this ragtag group of interesting and weird characters working for a government institute led by Amanda Waller? Wait a second. Is this just Suicide Squad? What's up, everybody, and welcome to another A to Geeks. Today I'm going to be talking about the first entry into the DCU, an animated entry, but an entry nonetheless, because it will be crossing over with the live-action movies, Creature Commandos. And I had a chance to read the modern run, the non-Frankenstein Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. run that came out after their first appearance. And I'm going to talk about what I loved about it and what I'd like to see from it in the TV show. But before talking about the comic, I'll give you a little quick introduction to the Creature Commandos in case you didn't know. A super quick review of the 8-part issue comic book series that I read. Finally landing out what I'd like to see in the comic in the animated TV show. And ending by answering the question, is this just the Suicide Squad? But before we dive into the episode, make sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a geeky episode. Alright, so first of all, who are the Creature Commandos? To give you a really quick intro into who they are, they're a team formed by the military who genetically modified regular people into monsters from horror movies. That's right. So these aren't the actual, or at least weren't the actual monsters from the horror movies that we know, like Frankenstein, Dracula, but they were actually modified people and turned into these monsters under Project M, Project Monster, to horrify their enemies. Pretty cool. Pretty cool idea, concept, and yeah, that's essentially the origin of this team. Essentially, you have 3 iterations of this team. You have one from Weird War Tales, you have another from the series that I read, and then you have a third from Frankenstein and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a New 52 run. Across the different iterations, you get a bunch of repeating characters like Warren Griffith, who is the werewolf of the team. You get Private Elliot Lucky Taylor, who is the Frankenstein-like monster who eventually goes by Frankenstein in the New 52 version. And you also get Sergeant Vincent Velcro, who is the vamp of the team, who is really made to look like Dracula at the beginning, but then afterwards changes it up. Even in later iterations, his skin turns red, he has a white ponytail, really cool stuff. Other honorable mentions across the team are Jake, or Jake 2, the first GI robot, Aten, the mummy-like communication specialist, Dr. Mira Rhodes, aka Dr. Medusa, and a bunch of others along the way. Alright, so let's talk about the series that I read, Creature Commandos, from May 2000. So overall, I really enjoyed Creature Commandos. I thought it was super fun. Essentially, you get the group of monsters sent to defend against a trans-dimensional threat to Earth. The 8 issues are pure 90s joy. If you like the vibes and the feels that 90s comics give you, the extra-ness of it all, you will love this run. It's pretty cool how even in the 2000s, this comic book actually speaks a lot on corporate greed, and it's kind of like the backbone of the plot that's happening, which I thought was a nice touch. Really what stood out to me across these 8 issues were a few things. I really liked the contrast of all the monsters being placed in a very military setting. Yes, it was trans-dimensional like I mentioned and whatnot, but it all felt very military focused. But essentially, I'm always a fan of anything that can combine 2 worlds that feel very opposite and bring them together successfully. Like Jubilee was for us in X-Men the Animated Series, Gunner is our POV character in this series. And considering this series, this animated series, is going to open up the DCU to us, I really hope that we do get a POV type character to kind of explain maybe what some of the status quo is and things like that. It would be awesome. And if it's Gunner, even better. I don't think so from the teaser trailer, but it would be cool if they kind of drop that in there. I think since the show is animated, whether it happens in the first season or in the later seasons, I'd really love to see some of the vibes and aesthetics from all the trans-dimensional places that they go to and different worlds and things like that. That are expressed in these 8 issues on the screen. That would be really cool. I do think that's a good way of differentiating them from Suicide Squad, even though obviously in the comics and stuff like that, Suicide Squad does get kind of interdimensional sometimes, especially in the more recent stuff. But fundamentally, I think that it would make it different. Kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy, actually, a little bit. If the point is to go for a fun, monster, badass experience, then I don't think that going too far into the characters is really needed that much. I think it kind of giving as much treatment to the plot, giving more treatment to the plot than to the characters at this moment would be great. One thing that I really also liked was, despite the crazy characters and all of these amazing, cool designs and everything, it still felt like a military operation. And like I mentioned before, that converging with the fact that they're ghoulish monsters really hit the mark for me. So I'd really love to see that in the show. So is this another Suicide Squad? Yes and no, and that's not a cop-out. It's really going to depend on what they choose to do creatively, how much of the teaser trailer is actually telling us about what the vibes of the show will be, and where you draw the line. Because ultimately, it's up to you, the viewer, to decide whether this feels like a reincarnation of something you've seen before, or if this is something fresh. My hope is that they really lean monster heavy on this one, and they make it very horror or horror aesthetic like, right? That'd be really cool. This is the guy who directed Scooby-Doo live action after all, so maybe he'll bring some of his Scooby-Doo or some of the research that he did on Scooby-Doo into the animated world we're about to see. All that said, Amanda Waller calling them Task Force M and the teaser trailer doesn't lead me to believe that it'll be all too different from Suicide Squad. So whether they're doing that intentionally, maybe setting up a versus movie, animated or non-animated, maybe this is the new iteration. Suicide Squad is kind of passing the baton to this new team, and they'll be the kind of Suicide Squad of the DCU. I don't know. That only James Gunn knows. Maybe a few other people, but mostly just James Gunn. Fundamentally, all this doesn't really matter because I have faith in James Gunn, and I think that he will put together not only a great Creature Commandos, but a great DCU. Alright, that's it everybody. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. And if you want to see what Superman, the one that's coming out in 2025, might feel like based off of All-Star Superman, the comic, one of the influences for the movie, stay tuned.